Welcome back to Snapcheck, and today we're going to be doing a few basic administration tasks. Now, occasionally we find that F&Is may sell the incorrect product, or the product doesn't match exactly closely with what is on Debella or your third-party payment platform. Or the client thought they were buying one product and something went wrong somewhere along the line, or there was a transmission error between ourselves and Security. Things happen, and unfortunately we need a way to correct them, and we need to let you know how to do that as well. So effectively what we want to do here is that we want to make sure that you understand the ways of correcting information inside the database or inside of the system itself, and this also leaves audit trails. So you're going to see on my loom here, what we've done is we've got an individual that's got a pending policy here. So we've got this pending policy. You see it's to be invoiced. It hasn't been activated yet. And please note, it's always good to do a recon on your stuff before you just go ahead and invoice, because once you've done that, things get a lot trickier. So we always say it'll be best to do a recon on your information before you go ahead and then start marking things as paid, unpaid, or whatever the case may be. So what we've suggested here is that we've said we've done a recon and we've noticed, okay, there's a problem on this particular product. Now we're going to take two case scenarios here, and the two case scenarios are going to be that of number one, the F&I in this group was absent, and another F&I took over but used their own Security codes to sell the product, and it actually needs to be shifted back to another branch. So we now need to change that. So effectively what you're going to do here is you're going to climb under client administration. We're then going to select the dealer that we were busy dealing with, and in this case it is Llewellyn's Motors. Okay. And we're going to assume the client now, yes. So now we can see in the title bar, it is still Synaptic. Client assumed is Llewellyn's Motors. So we are working under the premise of guise of Llewellyn's Motors. We're then going to say client reassignment. So this will automatically bring up all pending policies. Please note that my reconciled or invoice policies are not showing in here. And it'll bring up all my pending policies that I can now manipulate and play with before I go to invoicing stage. So let's just say that Quinton is the one that's the wrong one, so I can double click and that shifts it to the right hand side of the system. Once it's on the right hand side, I can then literally drop down on the dealership tab. You'll see that there's a drop down box, and I can say it should have been under Llewellyn fixes it. Now what can happen is I can request the change. That change will then be requested, and it'll go into my broker administration for approval under change requests. Now I'm not going to do that right now, so this will be dealer or product change. So it'll come through in here for me. Okay, now I go back to policy administration or client administration, and we're going to assume that the wrong product was sold on this client, and we need to do a product reassignment. So again, I'm going to configure the dealership. I'm going to go down and say Llewellyn's Motors. I'm going to click on save, assume the client now, yes. Again, my title bar will change, and we go product reassignment. Again, it'll bring through only what is the information on the actual pending policies alone. Now again, if I double click on that, it'll take it through, and it'll ask me what product do I want it on. Now I've only got the one product, but if you have a variety of products, it will list all your products here. It'll then ask you what split do you want it on. So let's say, for example, this was sold on the master split. It should have been sold on split 1. We're going to change it to split 1, and we will request the change. The change will be then requested. Once that's been completed, you're going to have the pop-up coming up saying product reassignment successfully sent. You're going to say okay. Now everything will come live again. So you'll be able now to go to broker administration, view change requests, and you'll see here that we've got a change request at the top for Llewellyn's Motors there, and that's going to take it from master to split 1. So you'll be able to see here the current dealership, if there's a new dealership requested, the current product it's on, if there's a product change, and then the current split, and if there's a split change. Now we can see there's a split change. So we want to click on that and say authorize, and we will say it has been authorized. So now that is completed. Now if I go back into policy administration and I search again for that particular product, let me just grab it up on the screen again, 845-5700, and I go policy number and I go search, I will see now that it's on split 1. Invoice is still to be done. Now that the thing is correct, I can now go and invoice that product. Now, let's say you need to change something on a product that's already been invoiced. So let us do another set of recons. I'm going to change this, and I'm going to say I'm going to change this to an ID number, call up my own product, and this one here. So let's just assume that this particular product has been, the invoice number was incorrect. So we want to change the invoice number for whatever reason. It was typed in incorrectly on reconcile process, whatever the case is. This is a reconciled and paid invoice. Now, we always suggest that this is now done with a dual authorization, and you will find out that this will need a dual authorization. So now here we use the support tab. We're going to say change invoice, invoice number change. Now we're going to search for it, 8444456, I think it was. I can check the ID number. I can see it's been paid, accepted, and reconciled, and these are all the informations that come through. Now, if you are doing a platform number update, so that's the platform reference, please, I have to request from you that you actually enter in the actual invoice number again. The system will need an invoice number at all times. You cannot just go here and change the platform reference. However, the adverse is true. You can change an invoice number but not change the platform reference. So you need to make sure that if you're changing a platform reference that you re-enter the invoice number as well. So we're going to change the invoice number, and that was our original point of coming through to here. So we want to change that to DI 85785 because it was incorrectly put in. We needed to invoice it for whatever reason. There was a claim or something on it, and now we can put a comment here saying changing the invoice number for the correction of the accounting. Okay, we could say Debella came in later than the claim. Okay, so we can click save, request successfully saved. Now it's on the request stage. So now we leave that, you go to broker admin again, review request changes, change requests, and you're going to see that it'll come up here where you're going to have a change request. You're going to drop this down, you're going to go into invoice change, and you'll see here that you are changing a reconciled and paid invoice. You are moving it from the one invoice number to the new invoice number. So that's the old invoice number to this invoice number, and you'll see the comment. This is going to require a dual authorization. So one person will have to authorize it, and you'll have to authorize it again. In my particular case, I don't need to authorize it. I'm not going to do it at the moment, but I don't need the dual authorization. I'm just giving this purely as a demo. So that is how you're going to effect a change through the support feature. When we have a look at this again, I know that we've done a video on the support feature changes. When you are doing various things, you've got to know what the impacts are. I can go and search this policy. So I can go and search this policy. I see it here, I know what it is, platform reference, ID number, I've got the invoice number, and I can change this to pending. Now, understanding guys, if you have one singular invoice, and you are going to change this policy for whatever reason back to pending, it is going to delete the invoice information. This is not the correct way if you need to release the payment information. The payment information will still be there and attached to both this ID number and this platform reference. This is to change a status if something has gone hopelessly wrong and you need to redo everything that you're going to do again. So this would be to literally create a change to accepted or reconciled from a cancelled policy or whatever the case is, or changing from a cancelled policy to a pending policy. I would not suggest this to rectify an invoice. If you're going to rectify an invoice, I would always recommend going into accounting and doing the same thing here by going 8444456 and doing a search on all, finding the invoice here, and then doing a credit for that singular policy itself. That to me would be the correct accounting way of doing it, because then you've got an invoice and a credit and your numbers balance. By deleting invoices from the support tab, you are going to find a missing invoice number, and that in its own self is going to be considered an issue. So if you are doing any sort of final audits and audits on invoice sequence, invoice on credit note sequence, invoice on credit number sequences, these things are going to crop up as problems when you are playing in the support tab. And this is why for managers we always insist that this support tab is only dealt with by people who have the authority in the company to make severe changes at a whim. I hope this video has helped. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.